you. Getting connected, the on button. It's such a beautiful reminder of how simple the answer is sometimes. When life seems not to work, if we can just take a moment and ask ourselves, have I gotten connected? Is there an on button somewhere that I didn't turn on? Is there some shift in my mind, in my life, just a simple shift that somehow will make everything work? So I love moments like this that remind us how very simple sometimes the solution is. And it's almost always just about reconnecting. With all of my very deep, respectful pranam to the Puja Swamijis, to the lineage that brings us here. It's such a blessing, it's such an honor to be offering here, to be sharing. And we spoke last night, we spoke today in the workshop on different aspects of helping us. It's not about getting free. It's about remembering that we are free. The truth of who we are as soul, as consciousness, as divinity is never bound, is never stuck. It's that we forget. We don't realize. And so it's about remembering. And tonight, I wanted to talk about one of the areas that to me is an area that we all, or many of us, get really stuck. And the solutions to that. And that area is an area that we speak about as success. From the time we're very young, we are trained to be successful. Whether in academics, whether in sports, whether in how we look, whether socially, financially, whatever pathway we want to walk on. And in many cases, it's all of them. We should be rich. We should be beautiful. We should be popular. We should have the corner office of the, CEO's office or the president's office. And we've got what I call this definition of success. And the dilemma with that is there's nothing wrong with having money. There's nothing wrong with being the president or the CEO of a company. Nothing wrong with being beautiful and popular. By all means, no problem, have it. The problem arises when that is our definition of success, and when it becomes that which we are working toward, running toward. Because it takes us deeper and deeper into what we speak of as Maya. Illusion, ignorance, agyan, avidya, the absence of, the opposite of. Truth, of wisdom, of awareness. One of my favorite stories is of a man who goes for holiday, a businessman, a very successful businessman. And he goes for holiday in this tropical village. Could be here in the Bahamas, but it's a fishing village, not a beautiful vegetarian ashram like this. It's a fishing village. And he's walking along the beach and he sits down under a tree to watch the ocean. And he sees a boat come in, and off the boat, a local villager gets off the boat, ties it, and comes and sits under the same tree. And the businessman says to the fisherman, "So what do you do?" Fisherman says, "I fish." And the businessman says, "Well, it's only 11 in the morning. Why are you sitting under a tree? Why aren't you out fishing? And the fisherman says, well, because I'm done with my fishing for the day. I went out for a few hours, collected what we need. We'll cook it up for lunch. We'll trade some of that with the neighbors for things that they have, and then I'll take a nap and spend some time with my family in the afternoon. And the businessman says, no, you've got it all wrong. Instead of coming in at 11 o'clock, you need to fish all day long. And you need to get more and more and more fish. The fisherman says, well, what would I do with them all? He says, well, you'd sell them. And in the money that you'd get from selling them, then you would buy more boats. And then you could hire people to fish for you. And when they would fish for you, then you would make even more money. And with the more money, you'd get more boats and you could hire more people. And the fisherman says, and then what? And the boatman says, and this is the best part then. Because then you would have to barely fish at all. Then you could just, go out for a little bit in the mornings and come back and have lunch with your family and nap in the afternoon and sit under the trees and watch the waves and spend time with your family. The fisherman naturally is quite confused because that's exactly what he's doing now. Exactly what he's doing now, but in what in Hindi we would say, pura chakkar laga ke wapas aa gaya. Gone in circles, just to end up back exactly where he is. The definition of success that most of us have is a definition that takes us, in so many cases, away from having time to meditate, having time to do yoga, having time to read scripture, to introspect, to be with family, to be in nature, to do seva. We're constantly running. Gotta get more, get more, get more. And then, because of course, then the result of the success is then I get to finally stop working, retire, hire people to do it for me so that I can meditate, take a walk on the beach, do some seva, be in nature, chant kirtan, read inspirational books. And so I want to talk tonight about how we break free from this definition. And again, as last night, I'll talk for some time and then remember to end early enough to take some questions before we conclude. When I had been in India, raise your hand if you were not here last night. Oh, lovely. Only a couple of you, and you already know my story. So, as I had mentioned last night, just for those who weren't here, very quickly, I come originally from the US, from Los Angeles, quite literally from Hollywood, hence the Hollywood to the Himalayas title. And I've lived now in Rishikesh, India for almost 30 years. Engaged in seva, karma yoga, sadhana. After I had been in India for about a year and a half or so, I was back in LA visiting, and I already had realized from the beginning how there was a secret there. There was a secret in India that brought joy into the lives of people who lived so far below the Western standards of poverty. I remember when I was in Rishikesh in the beginning, looking around, the kids, the sweepers, the people, almost all of them living so far below what we would deem poverty. And yet, they were happy. They may not have had shoes. They may have been living 7, 8, 10 people in a room. But they were happy. And not only were they happy, they were abundant. Abundant, it's a buzzword these days, manifesting abundance. The best way I know to manifest abundance is to change how you think. To realize that our cup runneth over. It's not about what I get. It's about how I feel about what I have. And this was taught to me by the people in Rishikesh as I looked at their level of joy, of peace, of ecstasy. So I realized there was a secret here to happiness that no one I knew had. And when I was back visiting in LA after being in India for some time, I'm a scientist. I'm a scientist by academic history, by heart, by love. I still love science. Science and spirituality overlap in a lot of really fun places. They are not opposites, as a lot of us think. We do not have to choose between science and spirituality. They're different ways into the same river of truth. So I decided to do a scientific experiment. And the experiment was around happiness. And I spoke to about 7, 8, 10 people I knew, all of whom I knew well personally. Some were friends, some were family members, who had attained the absolute highest level of success as deemed by our definition of success in our society. So a tenured professor at Stanford, a billionaire chairman of the board of one of Forbes' main companies, fortune companies. A successful Hollywood actress, a singer with a song in the top 10 on the radio at a time when people still listen to the radio. Somebody who played professional basketball, the LA Lakers. And in talking to all of these people, I didn't tell them, of course, I was doing a study, but in talking to them, chatting with them, I asked them the question of my study, and the question was, are you happy? Are you happy? And what I got was either I will be happy when, fill in the blank. They all had different blanks. So things like the kids grow up and go off to college, or my husband works less and we have more time together, or I can squeeze back into the jeans that I wore last year, whatever it is. I will be happy when, or I would be happy if. People at the absolute pinnacle of what everyone in the rest of the world is running to get to. And they are still one thing away from happiness, at least one thing. And it just reinforced for me now on this scientific level that definition of success had it all wrong. And so I want to give you a little bit of a list tonight of some of the things that I have found in the last almost 30 years lead to real success. Scripturally, spiritually, we say the highest goal of our human birth is to experience moksha, liberation, self-realization, God realization, however we describe it. We are here to fulfill our dharma, as Bhagavan Krishna explains so beautifully in the Gita, even to die on the battlefield in the fulfillment of your dharma. So however we think of success, whether it's scripturally or whether it's just common sense, think about in your life. You don't have to buy into necessarily what was said by Bhagavan Krishna or even what our scriptures say. Think in your life. What do you really want? What are really those moments in life in which you feel, yes, like if I just had this forever, yes, this is it. There are moments of connection, divine connection, ideally, if not very, very deep connections with others through which we experience the divine. Their experience is of service, of giving, of using our bodies, our time, our abilities, our talents in a way of service. There are moments of awareness, of realization, of truth. Everything else comes and goes. It's momentary. The desire gives birth to another desire. So here's a list, and try them out. Try them out. Again, you don't have to take my word for it. See how they work for you, and they're easy to remember. They're Sanskrit words, but they're easy to remember because they all begin with S, and success begins with S. So it's kind of what I think of as a 6S solution to success, or a 6S redefinition of success. Because Swamiji mentioned that tomorrow is Earth Day. And our current definition of success not only is making us miserable, stealing our spiritual health, our mental health, our physical health, but it's also killing our planet. The idea that somehow success is about how much I can gobble up, how much I can consume, how many people I can exploit in order to feel full. So we have eating therapy, drinking therapy, shopping therapy. But it doesn't work. And it kills the planet. So instead, number one, and I'll go through them kind of quickly because I do want to stop for some questions, but each of them could be a workshop in and of itself. But the first is Samarpan, and it means surrender. Most of us experience stress, frustration, depression, distress, anxiety, anguish when we are trying to hold on to that over which we have no control. Surrender, Samarpan, is the awareness that I actually have no control over anything other than my own interpretation, reaction, response, choices. I have no control over anything that happens in the rest of the world. It's why Bhagavan Krishna tells us over and over again in different ways, let go of the attachment to the fruits of your labor. It brings nothing but misery. Surrender is not weak. People think that surrender is kind of a last resort, like you're losing anyway. You hold up the white towel, you surrender because you are losing. No. Surrender is strong. Surrender says, thy will be done. Not my will, thy will. Because thy will is what gets done anyway. I mean, if by not surrendering I could actually convince God to do my will, then we would have scope for a conversation or a debate. But we can't. God never says, oh, you don't want it to be that way. Okay. No problem. Sure, of course. Let me change that for you. God's will is what's done anyway. Surrender is the awareness that I only have two options. I row my boat upstream and I sweat and I get nowhere. or I recognize that the flow of the universe is in the other direction. The will of the divine is in another direction. And I align myself with that flow. There's a story they tell of a village in India that was overrun by monkeys. And if you've ever been in India, you know there's lots of monkeys. But we're nonviolent people. We are committed to ahimsa, nonviolence. It's number one of the yamas, or what in Sanskrit is actually yam and niyam. At the core of the Ashtanga Yoga that Patanjali ji gave us, ahimsa, nonviolence. So they're not going to go around killing the monkeys or poisoning the monkeys. And they come up with a strategy, a technique. And they take coconuts and they hollow out the coconut. And inside the coconut, they put something that the monkey loves, a sweet, a piece of fruit. But the trick is that they make the hole in the coconut just big enough for an empty hand to go in and too small for a closed fist to come out. Now, if you're a four-legged creature and one of your legs is stuck in a coconut, you can't run, you can't climb trees, you can't swing from branches, you're stuck. Now, we know by Darwinian evolution that they are our closest DNA relatives. And so we'd like to think that they would have the wherewithal to let go of what was keeping them stuck, take their hand out of the coconut, and be free. But they never did. And so the story goes that it was a very, very successful operation because with all of their hands in coconuts, they could just catch the monkeys in nets and take them back to the village. Apocryphal or true, I have no idea, but I love it because we hold on. And that which we hold on to is what we think is going to give us what we want. It is this thing that if I just could get it, if I just could have it, if I just, it's that fill in the blank, I will be happy when or if. But the attachment to it is actually that which is keeping us stuck. So Samarpan, surrender to the divine. We pull our hand out of the coconut. We know there will be other sweets, there will be other fruit. And we recognize that freedom is of infinitely more value than whatever it is we are stuck with. Number 2, Shravan, listening. But deep listening, deep listening. The listening that we do in meditation, in prayer, in silence. Because it is that listening that shows us our path. It's the listening that gives us the signal, the sign to our Dharma. Like the caterpillar that gets it and it knows when to climb the tree and weave a cocoon and when to come out and be a butterfly. I know for me, I literally heard a voice when I walked through Parmarth Niketan 28 and a half years ago, a little more, that quite literally said, you must stay here. I was a scientist, not a mystic. I didn't hear voices. Nobody I knew heard voices, other than those we treated in the clinic or read about. But I listened. Shravan. We listen to the wisdom of the universe. But sadhana, the next one, is critically important because otherwise the voice of our ego, the voice of fear, the voice of indoctrination the voice of other people's definition of success gets so loud that it starts to play like our own inner voice. And if we don't have sadhana, we cannot tease apart what is the voice of my mother, of my father, of their agenda, of the influencer I follow on social media, versus what is actually my inner voice. And then Shraddha, faith. And faith is critical because without faith, we have nothing. Faith is the master key. There's a great story of a disciple who wants to walk on water. And he's very devoted to his guru, and his guru has promised him that he will give him the mantra to enable him to walk on water. And finally, after years of seva, the guru hands him a folded up leaf. And he gives it to the man and he says, hold this leaf in your hand and you can walk out onto the water. And he says, but do not open it. In this leaf is the powerful mantra that will enable you to walk across the water. The disciple takes the leaf, he walks out onto the water. Lo and behold, he's walking on the water. And he gets about halfway across. And the mind. Chances are we've all had that experience. The mind comes in, you're in this deep, deep state of meditation, and the mind goes, is this samadhi? Am I there? Oh my God, I got it. Wow, I'm here. Yes, this is it. Oh, I can't wait to post about this on social media. And suddenly, what happens to it? It's gone in an instant. The moment the mind comes in, so his mind comes in and says, I wonder what this mantra is. What is this mantra that enables me to walk on the water? And he opens up the leaf. And as he sinks, he sees that written on the leaf is just one word. Faith. Faith. So Shraddha. Faith. We lose our faith because we think that the universe is a vending machine. A lot of people come and they say, I used to have faith in God, but then my loved one got sick and died. I lost my job. My house burned down. This happened, that happened, as though somehow God had promised us somewhere, come to me, and I promise you, you'll never get fired. Your loved one will never leave you. No one you love will ever get sick and die. You'll always get what you want. We're not promised that. What we're promised is, come to me. And the world will still go up and down. But you will stay anchored. You will stay grounded. You will stay in that state of bliss, of awareness, of truth. So Shraddha, seva, service. Seva or karma yoga is that it's a spiritual practice. It is not volunteer work. Volunteer work is great. We should all do it anyway. But seva is not about those we are serving. It's not about the walls of the home for the battered women that I painted so that they can have a nicer house. That's beautiful. It's wonderful. By all means, do it. But seva is actually done, and you certainly can do it through painting the walls of a battered women's shelter, but it's done not about them, but about your spiritual practice. Seva is that purifies us. It is about removing the ego. which is why so frequently the seva that is given is that which feels beneath us. I'm a doctor. Why am I cleaning somebody's toilets? I'm a businessman. What do you mean sweep the floor? It is given to us to purify the mind, to purify the ego, to give us the opportunity of seeing the self in the one we are serving. Are you cooking food? It is not you, the cook, feeding the hungry. It is them agreeing on a level of Jiva Atma in this incarnation to play the role of the hungry so that you can play the role of the cook. It is a purification. And then lastly, Satsang, which means this, but it also means the company, the association you keep. When we leave these places, one of the questions that arises all the time is how to hold on to this experience. And one of the things that we realize is critical is who do we hang out with? Who is our Sangha? Because we're energetic beings. And we pick up the energy of those around us. And so Satsang is this beautiful opportunity we gather together in truth. But it also means as you move through your world, who do you hang out with? Who is that Sangha you associate with? So Samarpan, or surrender, Shravan, listening, Sadhana, Shraddha, Seva, and Satsang. And if you take these, what I have found is that you may not get the corner office. You may not become the CEO or the president, or you might. Depends on what your dharma is. But you will live with an experience of abundance, of success, of satisfaction, contentment, santosha, that no amount of money or house or car can give you. So with that and 6 minutes left, I want to open it up for any questions that anyone may have. Yes, and we have a beautiful Sevika with Karma Yogi with the microphone. Yes, here in the front.
Namaste.
Namaste.
So I asked you this question yesterday already, but you had no time and you said to ask today. So yesterday at Satsang you mentioned that you went through some trauma and addictions. So I would ask you to maybe go a little bit more into that and how to not be stuck in the memories from the past, traumatic memories, and to be stuck in the addictive, not only substances, but also like addictive mind patterns.
Okay.
Thank you.
We were speaking at dinner tonight, Swamiji, Acharyaji, about the great challenge of doing videos on Instagram or TikTok and kind of giving deep teachings in 60 seconds. And I feel like now I've got 5 minutes, but we're gonna try to go into a very, very deep and lengthy teaching in as much of a nutshell as I can do. So, in my early childhood, I experienced amidst the beautiful blessings, I experienced also severe childhood sexual abuse, abandonment. In my adolescence, I struggled with bulimia, severe eating disorder, depression. When I came to India, I was on what I felt was kind of the recovery side, meaning I was not living in a state of active pain and misery. I was able to eat and be healthy. But I was still very, very stuck in the story, in the identification, in the ramifications on my life. It was a daily, hourly struggle to stay anchored, to stay healthy, to stay calm, to remember that here we are today and not at that time, 15, 20 years ago now, many, many decades ago. So I shared last night about my guru sending me into Ganga to forgive the abuse, to forgive the abandonment. And in that, the identification had to go. Because there was a moment in time, a couple of years later, where I realized that I had given up the anger and pain, but I still carried the story, and that it still colored how I understood myself. Our spiritual practice is the answer. What our spiritual practice does, number one, is it makes you realize that you are not the one to whom that was done. At the age of 25, there was not a cell on my body that I could hold out in front of my guru and say, this was abused. This was abandoned. This was betrayed. This was harmed. Every single cell of my body had regenerated. Within 7-8 years, every cell of your body down to your internal organs has regenerated. So if you're holding on to something that happened more than 7 or 8 years ago, I ask you, to whom did it happen? May that being rise. Because there is not a cell in your being today to which that happened. But we have brought it into today through our thoughts. And at the core, spirituality teaches us how to work with our thoughts, how to work with the mind. On a deeper level, spirituality teaches us I wasn't the body to begin with, even if it happened within the last 7 or 8 years. I am soul. I'm not the body. I am that which, as Bhagavan Krishna teaches us in chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita, cannot be burned by fire, wet by water, dried by the wind, cut with knives. But even if you don't get that far, and eventually you get there, but our spirituality gives us the teachings to realize that being is not here, but in my habit, I have brought it into the moment. And I have a choice. I have power. That's the freedom. What our spirituality also does is it helps us understand other people's karmic journey and karmic package. And it gives us the choice to say, quite literally, I will not offer, sacrifice my happiness, my joy, my freedom on the altar of someone else's anger, ego, fear, violence, ignorance, which is actually what we do. If I don't let go, I am saying, okay, you hurt me then, but today I'm going to take my possibility of joy today, freedom today, and I'm going to offer it on the altar of the mistake that you made at some point in the past. Spirituality is all about present moment. Whether you go in through a practice of mindfulness, whether you go in through almost any of the spiritual traditions, it's all about right here, right now, present moment. This breath, this awareness. And so it frees us from the stuckness of the past. It gives us agency. It gives us autonomy. When Bhagwan Krishna says to Arjun, stand up, be fearless, he's not talking just to Arjun, he's talking to us. When Yamraj speaks to Nachiketa, he's not speaking just to Nachiketa, he's speaking to us. He's giving us a choice of how to walk. Are we going to be lured, seduced by a path that feels good in the moment, whether because it's actively pleasurable or because it's just giving in to the story in my mind? Or am I going to choose a path that actually leads to awakening? What addiction does, what our holding on to the past does, is it gives us a very good excuse. And this is why, as you're working with addiction, whether to a substance or just to your anger or your pain or your story, you have to ask yourself, who would I be without it? And why am I afraid to step into that? Because for a lot of us, the pain is a crutch, it's an excuse. Here's why I don't trust. Here's why I don't step up to the plate of my life. Here's why I am living in anxiety, stress, addiction, misery, a bad relationship, whatever it is. And you've got to ask yourself, is your ultimate goal that at the end of your life you can say, well, at least I had a good excuse? Right? Think about that. How many of us give up our life just because we've got a good excuse? That's not why we're here. The goal of life is not to have a good excuse for why you didn't live it. But you've got to be prepared to let go of the excuse in order to step into that freedom. And just lastly, for one moment, one of the mantras that Swamiji chants and was chanting last night in I think it was at the Arti, is the beautiful mantra that we refer to as the Mahamrityunjay mantra. And I won't go into it now. It, again, is a course in and of itself. But when it says, Trayambakam yajamai sugandhim pushtivardhanam urvarukamiva bandhanat mrityor mokshi amamitat. There's a line in there. Urvarukamiva bandhanat. And what that means is, oh God, make me so ripe. It is referring to a fruit or a squash that when it gets so ripe, it automatically falls off the vine. You don't have to tug it. You don't have to pull it. You don't have to cut it. It automatically drops the vine. And the prayer is, oh God, make me so ripe that I am able to let go of the anger, of the pain, of the way that I am numbing myself of the anger and the pain through the addiction. Make me so free of my attachment to the story, to the habits, that like that fruit, I just drop the vine. Make me that ripe. And if you can let that be your prayer, just every day, make me so ripe so it doesn't become about pushing away the vine or tearing yourself away from the vine in this agonizing spiritual practice. But it becomes a practice of ripening. May I ripen so fully in Gyan, in Bhakti, in Karma, that vine just drops off. Beautiful. Om Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamsoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Oh God, lead us from that darkness of ignorance and falsehood in which we suffer and bring suffering unto others, into that light of truth in which we realize and remember the truth of who we are, in which the suffering ends. Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om Shanti.
So I'd like to thank very much Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati for this beautiful teaching tonight. Let's give her a very big hand. And tomorrow we'll be continuing this beautiful program with the workshop at 12 and then in the evening Satsang. And also Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati will offer to sign her books in the boutique after the workshop. So around 1:30, we are, those who would like to receive the signature and have your book signed, Sadhviji will be in the boutique at 1:30 tomorrow. So now we reviewed the rest of the schedule for tomorrow. So tomorrow morning we'll have the morning satsang here at 6 a.m. And Sham and Mohini will be leading the satsang and sharing teachings on how to continue to develop your practice at home. 8 o'clock, so tomorrow we'll be honoring the International Earth Day and we'll be having a special yoga class on the beach platform that will be available online at 8 o'clock. Then 9:50 the brunch, 11 o'clock the ashram welcome and history tour, living from reception. 12 o'clock we continue the program on finding freedom, strategies for getting unstuck and living in your highest self with Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati here on the Garden platform. 4 o'clock, the yoga classes, and then we'll have an intermediate class on the beach and the beginners on the Bay West platform. 5:50 the dinner, 7 o'clock the chanting of the Bhagavad Gita, followed by the chanting of the Hanuman Chalisa in the main temple. And in the evening satsang, we continue the program on finding freedom, strategies for getting unstuck and living in your highest self with Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati. And tonight we also have been receiving a request that we will dedicate the final prayers for the peaceful transition of Pope Francis, who left his body. So we dedicate the final prayers for the peaceful transition of the soul. So we also have a request to dedicate the final prayers for Monica Johnson, who is tomorrow going for a medical procedure. So we'd like to dedicate the final prayers for her, peaceful and a successful procedure and quick recovery back to radiant health. So on page 97.
Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivadanam Murvarukamiva Bandhanan Nrityor Mukshiyamamritat. Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivadanam Murvarukamiva Bandhanan Nrityor Mukshiyamamritat. Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivadanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshiyamamritat. Om Sarvesham Swastir Bhavatu Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina Sarve Santu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kasyad Dukapag Bhavit Asatumma Sadgamaya Tamasumma Jyotirgamaya Mrityor Mamritam Gamaya. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Peace Peace Peace. O adorable Lord, the mercy and love, let us abide in Thee forever and ever. Omalo Sadguru Shivananda Maharaj Ki Jai. Omalo Shri Guru Vishnavananda Maharaj Ki Jai. Please stand up for the Arati. You can follow along on page 118. Om Jai Jarati Vinna Vinayaka Vina Vinayaka Shri Ganesha Jai Jarati Subramanya Subramanya Kartikeya Jai Jarati Venugopala Venugopala Venulola Papa Vidura Navanita Chora Jai Jarati Venkataraman Venkataramana Sangataharana Sitarama Radhe Shyama Jai Jarati Gauri Manohara Gauri Manohara Bhavani Shankara Samba Sadashiva Uma Maheshwara Jai Jarati Rajarajeshwari Rajarajeshwari Tripura Sundari Mahalakshmi Mahasaraswati Mahakali Mahashakti Jai Jarati Anjaneya Anjaneya Hanumanta Jai Jarati Dattatreya Dattatreya Trimurti Avatara Jai Jarati Adityaya Adityaya Bhaskaraya Jai Jarati Shanishwaraya Shanishwaraya Bhaskaraya Jai Jarati Shankaracharya Shankaracharya Advaita Gurave Jai Jarati Sangurunata Sangurunata Shivananda Ti Vishnudevananda 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 Jai Jarati Agastya Munaye Agastya Munaye Jivama Priyaye Jai Jarati Ayyappa Swami Ayyappa Swami Dharma Shastave Jai Jarati Jesus Gurave Moses Gurave Buddha Gurave Jai Jarati Muhammad Gurave Guru Nana Gurave Samasarevyo Namaha Jai Jarati Venugopala Om Natatra Suryobhati Nachandatarakam Nema Vidyota Bandikatoya Magni Tam Eva Bantamanabati Sarvam Tasya Bhasa Sarvindam Vibhati Om Gange Chayamune Chaiva Godavari Saraswati Narmade Sindhu Kaveri Namastabhyam Namo Namaha Tvameva Mata Chapita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhu Sasaka Tvameva Tvameva Vidya Dravinan Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Kaiye Navacha Manasendriyarava Buddhiyan Manava Prakriti Swabhavad Karom Yadiyat Sakalam Parasmai Nara Yanayeti Samarpayami Sarvadharmam Prityaja Mamekam Sharanam Vraja Amtva Sarva Papebhyo Mokshaishami Sucha. Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you very much, everybody at home, for joining us for this beautiful evening satsang. Have a good night and sleep well. Everybody here, make sure to take prasad before you leave. Please help us to tidy up the satsang hall. And please take all the green cushions to the back. Have a good night.